and other agricultural machinery in the port city of Chernihiv along the Danube River. Small ports on the Danube, like this one, have become vital for Ukraine to export grain ever since Russia pulled out of the Black Sea grain deal last month. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says this is the 7th Russian attack on a port since that green deal fell apart. Here's rescue that the Russian strike is a blow to world food prices, a blow to social and political stability in Africa and in Asia. Basic things that provide a normal life to every society. It is food on the table in households. No other terrorist in the world apart from Russia has ever so openly and intentionally targeted the security of so many nations at once, taking it to work. Meanwhile, a Hong Kong-flagged cargo ship carrying food products departed the port of Odessa on Wednesday, becoming the first container ship to leave the Black Sea in a month. The ship transited through a temporary corridor, opened up to evacuate vessels that were already in Ukrainian ports at the time of Russia's full-scale invasion. All right. Joining me now is Matthew Schmidt, Associate Professor of National Security at the University of New Haven and former Professor of Strategic Planning at the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. Thanks so much for being here with us. So first, we heard from President Zelensky there concretely. What effect will this have on food security and on Ukraine economically? This attack on the granaries basically nothing at this scale right now. What we have to understand is that the market has already priced in the war. If you actually look at the spot price of wheat right now, it's lower than it was a few weeks ago when Russia formally pulled out of the grain deal. So the market is factoring this in. And the truth is there's a lot of slack in the US and Canada, where there's wheat that they can put out on the market. It's going to take time to move it to change supply routes and these kinds of things. But it's there. Not a bad deal for Ukraine. Ukraine is hurting because of this. But the fact of the matter is, those price effects are already in the system. All right. So the markets are handling it. But what does this attack signal to you then? In the bigger picture? Well, the Danube port is essentially the last port that Ukraine can move goods on. There's a series of blocks you can move essentially from that point in Ukraine all the way to the North Sea. And you can get those goods out to places like Germany and other potential markets. But again, the hard truth there's moving goods through that river system is slow and the throughput's very small. You're not going to put out the kind of tonnage that you need to put out, really. But it's deeply important nonetheless, because there's nothing else is going anywhere. Right. So those Danube ports then establishes an alternative route to shipping from ports. Right. On the Black Sea. But then despite Moscow ending the grain agreement, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago, one ship defied Russian threats and left the port. Things seem sort of on a knife's edge here. Will Russia allow this, or will they stop or even attack this or future shipping along this corridor? Well, I think you said it right. It's a knife's edge. And what they're trying to do in warfare here is to keep everyone on that knife's edge, because that's going to raise insurance costs. The real target here is the marine insurance market. It's Lloyd's of London and others that are going to allow global shipping firms to be able to protect themselves and engage in this trade. And if those prices go so high because Russia is threatening to stop ships or shoot at ships, then Russia doesn't have to stop anyone because shipping companies will stop sending ships into Ukraine in the first place. And this is all designed to strangle the Ukrainian economy, and they don't have to do it with bullets. All right. Raising the stakes even more here. If we show the map, you can see the attacks. They're relatively close to Romania, which is a NATO member. So how dangerous could this be in terms of potentially dragging NATO into the conflict? It's certainly risky. But Russia has been very careful about it. And we have to remember that should something happen on Romanian soil, this is in some instances as NATO's roll tanks in the Ukraine kind of situation. NATO will confirm they'll decide to let it go. They'll decide to pretend it didn't happen. They'll decide to say it happened just on the other side of the line that they're drawing on a map. So this isn't, an instant button that's going to get pushed and bring NATO into the war. Yeah. But Russia may be careful, but still, accidents happen. We only have about a minute left, But I did want to ask you about this. I mean, we're speaking of NATO. We're seeing more tension between Poland and Belarus. Poland now sending thousands of troops to its border there. We've seen Wagner reportedly trying to recruit in Poland. How concerning is the growing tension there? I think it's very concerning. There has been long-standing tensions along that border, and especially with partner group there. If you have Prigozhin there, he's a seasoned commander. Whenever you think of these guys, they were pretty good on the battlefield. And so it's the threat that Poland and NATO have to take seriously. I would not expect things to happen, but the threat itself will force NATO to redeploy forces. And that's really the first-order effect here. That's what Russia is trying to do, is to get NATO to redeploy. Listen, I really appreciate your expertise on all this. Matthew Schmidt, thank you so much. My pleasure.